I still remember the exact moment my world cracked. Not broke completely, but cracked, like a thin line on glass that you know will eventually spread, no matter how hard you try to ignore it. It was 6:47 in the morning. Too early for bad news. Too early for calls that make your heart fall into your stomach. But that's exactly what happened. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I was still half asleep, trying to push through another restless night. I reached over and saw the name. Lisa. She never called this early. My breath caught before I even answered. "Hello," I whispered. There was a long pause, the kind of pause you feel in your bones. Then her shaky voice broke through. "Honey, your mom collapsed." For a second my body forgot how to move. I sat up slowly, as if the weight of her words was pressing down on my chest. I couldn't think. I couldn't breathe. Everything inside me fell into cold silence. "What do you mean collapsed? Where is she? Is she okay?" My voice cracked as the questions rushed out. "She's at the hospital. They took her into emergency care. You should come now." I threw on clothes without thinking. Whatever was closest to me. I didn't care. I grabbed my keys, rushed out the door, and drove faster than I ever had. My entire body was shaking. The traffic lights blurred. My heartbeat drowned out every sound. My mom. My best friend. The only person who ever believed in me no matter what, fighting for her life. I couldn't accept it. When I arrived at the hospital, the air was cold and smelled like disinfectant, a scent I would come to hate. I ran inside, nearly slipping on the floor as I turned the corner. I found my aunt sitting in a plastic chair, her hands trembling around a paper cup of untouched coffee. "What happened?" I asked, barely able to speak. She looked up at me, her eyes red and swollen. She was making breakfast, and just collapsed. "They think it might be her heart." My world stopped spinning. My mom had always been strong. The kind of woman who carried everyone else's problems on her shoulders but never complained. The kind of woman who loved harder than anyone I knew. Seeing her reduced to a hospital room, monitors, wires. It didn't feel real. It felt like a nightmare I hadn't woken up from. But the nightmare was only beginning. Because the person I thought I could trust, the one who had promised to be there for both of us, was about to show me a side of him I never imagined. A cold, greedy, heartless side that would push me into the darkest, angriest version of myself. And it all started with one sentence. One sentence that still echoes in my mind. "If you want me to help, you owe me $55,000. From that moment everything changed. And I realized something important. When people show you who they truly are at your lowest moment, you either break, or you rise. Chose to rise. His name was Daniel, my mom's partner of 6 years. Not my father, but he had always been around enough to feel like part of the family. He moved into our home 2 years after Mom started dating him, and while I never fully trusted him, I also never imagined he would be capable of what he eventually did. He was charming. That was his thing. Charming in a polished shoes, perfect smile kind of way. Everyone at his company liked him. Strangers liked him. He had this confident walk, this smooth voice, this way of convincing people that he always had everything under control. But sometimes, charm isn't confidence. Sometimes it's manipulation. Still, my mom loved him. She said he made her feel safe after years of raising me alone. She said he filled a space in her heart that had been empty for too long. Oh, I tried to accept him. I tried to see him the way she did. But there were cracks in the image. Cracks I ignored. Small lies that didn't make sense. Money that disappeared from my mom's accounts with explanations that felt rehearsed. A job that he talked about constantly but never actually proved he had. And the biggest red flag, the way he acted when things didn't go his way. He had a temper. Not the loud kind. The cold kind. The kind where he didn't yell. He simply changed. His eyes hardened. His voice dropped. And the room felt 10 degrees colder. Mom always brushed it off. "He's stressed," she would say. "He has a lot on his plate." But real stress doesn't make someone lose empathy. Real stress doesn't turn someone into stone. Now, standing in the hospital hallway, I saw the truth I had tried to ignore reflected in his face. He didn't look scared. He didn't look worried. He looked irritated, impatient, as if we were bothering him. I stepped back and watched him silently, unnoticed. He was pacing near the elevator, scrolling through his phone like the world wasn't falling apart. When he spotted me, he put on that fake smile, the one I used to fall for. "There you are," he said casually. Finally. My mother was fighting for her life." He walked toward me, stopping just close enough that I had to force myself not to recoil from the smell of expensive cologne. "We need to talk," he said quietly. My stomach tightened. "About what?" He sighed, a dramatic, annoyed kind of sigh, and crossed his arms. "They won't start certain treatments unless there's a financial guarantee. And your mother? Well, she didn't exactly prepare for emergencies." My jaw clenched. Mom prepared for everything. She was careful, organized, responsible. If something wasn't paid, it wasn't because she forgot. It was because Daniel had convinced her to let him handle it. "How much is needed?" asked. He lowered his voice and looked at me with cold eyes. $55,000. My breath stopped. "What? Why that much? That doesn't make sense." He shrugged. "That's what they said. Without it, they won't continue." He said it like he was talking about a grocery bill. No emotion, no fear, just the numbers. "Okay," I whispered, panicking. "We can figure something out. We can talk to the doctor." "No," he cut me off sharply. "You can figure something out. Because I'm not paying." The crack in my world widened. "But you live with her," I whispered. "You say you love her." He leaned closer, and his voice dropped to a whisper that still sends chills down my spine. "Love doesn't pay bills." That was the moment my anger began to rise. Slowly, quietly, dangerously. Like a storm forming far away, growing stronger with every passing second. And soon, that storm would hit him with full force. I felt my heartbeat pounding in my ears. It wasn't just the number, though $55,000 was more than anything I'd ever imagined needing so suddenly. It was the casual way he said it, like he was telling me the weather. Like my mom's life had a price tag attached. "You're seriously not helping," I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. He took a step back and held up his hands. "Hey, don't put this on me. Your mom never put my name on anything. The house, the insurance, the accounts, nothing. She kept everything separate." I stared at him, stunned. "That's because you told her you didn't want to feel tied down. Remember?" He shrugged like it didn't matter. "Point is, she's not my responsibility." My hands were shaking now. "But she took care of you. She cooked for you. She paid bills for you. She trusted you. And I was good to her," he snapped. "But this is a big expense. If she didn't plan ahead, that's not my fault." I couldn't believe the words coming out of his mouth. I kept waiting for the moment he'd crack, for the guilt to show. A softening of his eyes, a sigh, anything. But nothing came. His face was stone. "What do you expect me to do?" I asked quietly. He leaned against the wall, crossing his arms again. "Simple. You pay. Or you convince the hospital to start without payment. I don't care which." He didn't care. Those were the words that cut the deepest. Not because of what he said, but because it was the truth behind everything I had ignored. He never cared. Not about me. Not about my mother. Not about the life they built together. Still, something inside me wanted to give him one more chance. One more opportunity to be human. "She might not make it," I whispered. "She might not survive if they delay." His eyes flicked up for half a second. Then he shrugged again. "That's not on me." The coldness in his voice made my stomach twist. I turned away from him before I said something I couldn't take back. I walked down the hallway, trying to breathe, trying to stay calm. But he followed me. "I'll make it easier for you," he said. "If you really need the money quickly, you can sell the house." I spun around, shocked. Sell the house? The house she built? The house she raised me in. Are you insane? He raised an eyebrow. It's an option. It's her house, I said through my teeth. Which, by the way, he continued, she said she would leave to both of us someday. So technically, it's our house. I felt something snap inside me. He had gone too far. That was a conversation she had with you when she trusted you, I said sharply. Not after this. He smirked. Trust me, once she recovers, she'll forget all about this. She always forgives. That was the moment I realized he believed he could do anything, absolutely anything, and my mom would still choose him. But I wasn't my mom. I stepped closer to him, so close I could feel the tension between us like electricity. You want $55,000? I said slowly, coldly. Fine. His eyebrows lifted with sudden interest. I'll give you the answer you deserve. He smiled, thinking he had won. He had no idea that he had just handed me the weapon I needed. And I would use it, carefully, patiently, perfectly. I didn't go home that day. I stayed at the hospital, refusing to leave my mother's side. She was unconscious, hooked up to machines, her chest rising and falling with a mechanical rhythm that didn't feel natural. I held her hand and whispered promises I wasn't sure I could keep. But as I sat there, my mind kept replaying every strange moment, every odd comment, every small red flag about Daniel. And slowly, those cracks in his perfect image connected into something much darker. Then the doctor came in. A calm man in his mid-40s with tired eyes but a gentle tone. How is she? I asked. She's stable for now, he said. But we'll need to perform additional procedures to prevent complications. My heart tightened. And how much will that cost? He looked at me carefully. We're working with your mother's insurance. Most of it is covered. You'll have some fees but nothing extreme. I blinked. What? Covered? Yes, he nodded. Your mother has a very good medical policy. Froze. She does. Of course. She's been paying into it for years. My breath caught in my throat. If her insurance was good, if everything was covered, then why did Daniel tell me the hospital needed a financial guarantee? Doctor, I said slowly, was there ever a request made for a $55,000 deposit? He frowned. No, absolutely not. I felt my entire body go cold. So no one asked for that amount? No, he repeated. The only thing we mentioned was a standard clearance form. Nothing involving large payments. My chest tightened with anger so sharp it almost hurt. Daniel hadn't been misinformed. He didn't misunderstand. He lied. He wanted money. Not for my mother. Not for her health. For himself. My hands started shaking, but not from fear this time. From rage. Pure, controlled rage. After the doctor left, I walked out of the room and leaned against the wall, letting the truth sink in. He was trying to profit off my mom's medical emergency. He was trying to manipulate me into giving him money, a huge amount while she was fighting for her life. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. This wasn't just greed. This was betrayal at a level I couldn't even process. And now that I knew the truth, there was no going back. I walked down the hallway and found Aunt Lisa. She looked exhausted, but when I told her what happened, her expression changed instantly. That man, she whispered, shaking her head. I never trusted him. Never. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Your mother loved him, she said softly. I didn't want to make things worse. He nodded. Understood. But now things had changed. Then she said something that made my heart drop. Honey, maybe it's time you looked into your mother's accounts. What do you mean? She sighed deeply. I think he's been taking money for a long time. And that was the moment my plan began to form. Slow, quiet, and deadly calm. Daniel wanted money. He wanted control. He wanted to pretend he was untouchable. Fine. I would show him what real power looked like. I drove home exhausted, but fueled by a new purpose. My mom's house felt colder than usual. Too quiet, too empty. I walked inside and went straight to her office. It was a small room filled with her organized folders, labeled binders, and a single wooden desk. My mom loved keeping everything neat. She said order made life easier to understand. And now, that order would help me uncover the truth. I turned on her laptop. Thankfully, she had shown me her password years ago, just in case. I typed it in and the screen lit up. My heart pounded as I clicked on her financial records. What I found made me feel sick. Large transfers, frequent withdrawals, payments that didn't make sense. And worst of all, the name that appeared over and over again. Daniel Brooks. Thousands of dollars. Tens of thousands. Over the years. Nearly $90,000 gone. I scrolled through the transactions, covering my mouth as tears filled my eyes. My mom trusted him. She gave him everything she could. She believed his excuses, his sweet words, his fake promises. And he repaid her by draining her life savings. My chest tightened with a deep, burning anger. But instead of lashing out, something inside me became calm, focused, sharp. If he wanted money, I would give him something much more powerful. Evidence. Because the truth was simple. Daniel didn't know I had access to these files. He didn't know I knew about the insurance. He didn't know the hospital had exposed his lie. And soon, he wouldn't know what was coming next. I printed everything. Dozens of pages. Transactions. Emails. Count logs. Even screenshots of messages where he manipulated my mom into paying for things he claimed were emergencies. Then I checked something else. Something I prayed wouldn't be true. Their joint tax records. And there it was. Daniel had been using my mother's information to file fraudulent claims. Claims that, if discovered, would not only ruin him legally, but destroy every lie he ever built. My hands were shaking as I printed the last page. This wasn't just greed. This was fraud. Exploitation. And now I had proof. But I couldn't go to the police yet. Not until I confronted him. Not until I made him face what he had done. I packed everything into a folder and placed it on the kitchen counter. I stood there for a few minutes, breathing deeply, letting my anger turn into clarity. Then I looked around the house he had suggested I sell. My mom's photographs on the wall, her favorite plant by the window, her knitted blankets on the couch. This was her life, her home, her heart, and he had tried to take all of it from her. But he wasn't taking anything else. Not one more dollar. Not one more excuse. Not one more lie. I sat down, opened my notebook, and began writing the final part of my plan. 'Cause tomorrow, Daniel would receive the answer he truly deserved. He came home around 7 in the evening. Confident, relaxed, completely unaware. I was sitting at the kitchen table when he walked in. As soon as he saw me, his expression turned annoyed. "Oh, you're here," he said, taking off his coat. "Shouldn't you be at the hospital?" I didn't move. "We need to talk." He sighed dramatically. "Look, if this is about the $55,000, I already told you." "It is," I interrupted. He smirked. "Good. 'Cause I was thinking maybe you could get a loan. Or ask relatives." I looked at him calmly. "I won't need a loan." His eyebrows rose. "Oh, found the money already?" I nodded slowly. "But before I give you anything, I want to show you something." He froze for a moment, confused. Then he stepped closer, leaning over the table as if trying to intimidate me. "Show me what?" I pulled out the thick folder and slid it toward him. He narrowed his eyes. "What is this?" "The answer you asked for," I said quietly. He opened the folder. The first page was a transaction summary. The second was an email he wrote to my mother asking for $8,000 to cover legal fees. The third was the hospital's financial report, showing that everything had been covered. His face drained of color. "What is this?" he demanded, flipping through the pages faster, panic starting to creep into his voice. "Proof," I said, my voice cold. "Proof that you lied about everything." He slammed the folder shut. "This is taken out of context." I stood up, meeting his eyes without fear. No context explains why you asked me for $55,000 while my mom was unconscious. No context explains the withdrawals, the fake emergencies, the fraudulent tax filings. Daniel, you stole from her. He stepped back, breathing heavily. You don't know what you're talking about. I do, I said. And so will the police. He froze. You wouldn't, he whispered. Oh, I would. And I will. His calm, polished mask broke. His voice rose, cracked, desperate. You can't do this. If you call the police, I lose everything. I stared at him without blinking. You already took everything from her. For the first time since I'd known him, he looked genuinely scared. Please, he said, his voice shaking. We can talk about this. No, I said firmly. You talked enough. You lied enough. You stole enough. He opened his mouth again, but I cut him off. You wanted $55,000. Fine. I'll give you something much better. I picked up the folder and held it in front of him. The truth. He reached out to grab the papers, but I pulled them away. You're done here, I said. Get your things. Leave this house. Now. He stared at me, realizing he had lost. You don't have the guts to go through with this, he said weakly. I smiled coldly. I already did. He froze. What? I sent copies of all this to the authorities an hour ago. His face collapsed into pure horror. And Daniel, they already called back. He stumbled backward, shaking his head. No, 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 no. You asked me for an answer, I whispered. This is it. He grabbed his coat and rushed out the door without another word. And just like that, the house felt warm again. The next morning the phone rang. It was the investigator assigned to the case. He confirmed receiving the documents. He confirmed that charges were being reviewed. And he confirmed something else, something that made my stomach twist. Your mother wasn't the only victim, he said softly. What do you mean? We have records of other individuals reporting similar behavior from Daniel Brooks. He has a history. My chest tightened. History. Pattern. A trail of people he had emotionally drained, manipulated, and robbed blind. How long will this take? I asked quietly. We've already issued a notice to bring him in for questioning. We'll keep you updated. When the call ended, I sat down and let myself breathe for the first time in what felt like days. He was gone. Not just from the house, from our lives. That afternoon I returned to the hospital. My mom was still unconscious, but her breathing was steadier. I sat beside her, holding her hand, whispering everything I needed her to hear. Mom, he's gone. I'm here. You're safe. A tear slipped down my cheek and landed on her hand. And then, I swear, her fingers moved just a little. It wasn't much, but it was enough to give me hope. For the next week, I stayed by her side, refusing to leave. Slowly, she began to wake up. Confused at first, groggy, weak, but she was alive. Fighter just like always. When she finally opened her eyes fully, she looked at me silently for a long moment. You've been crying, she whispered. I laughed softly through my tears. Maybe a little. She squeezed my hand. Where's Daniel? She asked quietly. I took a deep breath. Gone. What happened? I'll tell you everything, I said. But not now. Right now you just need to rest. She nodded weakly, trusting me, the same way she always had. Over the next few days, I updated her piece by piece. Not every detail, not the darkest parts, but enough for her to understand that she had been betrayed, used, and taken advantage of. At first she didn't believe it. Then she cried. Then she got angry. And finally she let it go. Because she realized something powerful. His absence hurt far less than his presence ever did. And that was when I knew we were going to be okay. One evening, as I was leaving her room, I got another call from the investigator. Daniel turned himself in, he said. We'll proceed with charges. I thanked him quietly and ended the call. It was over. Not the pain. Not the betrayal. Not the memories, but him. He was finally gone. My mom eventually made a full recovery. It wasn't quick, and it wasn't easy, but she fought her way back with the same strength she had used to raise me alone. And through the healing process, hers and mine, we talked a lot. We talked about trust. We talked about love. We talked about blind loyalty, the kind that makes you ignore the wrong signs because you desperately want the right result. One night, she said something I'll never forget. "I thought being alone made me weak," she whispered, staring at the ceiling. "But now I know. Trusting the wrong person makes you weaker." I squeezed her hand gently. "You're not weak. You were kind. And he used that kindness." She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "And you saved me." "No," I said softly. "You saved yourself long before I ever stepped in. You just forgot how strong you were." We rebuilt our lives slowly. We took back the house, reclaimed the quiet peace that had been missing for years, and created new routines that didn't include lies, manipulation, or fear. Sometimes the silence felt strange, like we were waiting for someone to walk in with a fake smile and a new excuse. But eventually that silence became something else. Freedom. Real freedom. And as for me, I learned something too. I learned that anger can destroy you, or it can protect you. Depends on what you do with it. I could have screamed. I could have broken down. I could have begged him to be human. But instead I chose truth. Chose clarity. Chose justice. And the justice wasn't in seeing him punished, though that mattered too. The real justice was watching my mom smile again. Watching her heal. Watching her look in the mirror and finally see a woman who deserved better than him. One morning she said, "You gave him the answer he deserved." And she was right. Because when someone tries to put a price on your pain, when someone tries to turn your heartbreak into profit, when someone thinks they can manipulate you simply because you're vulnerable, the best answer isn't violence. It isn't rage. It isn't revenge in the dramatic sense. The best answer is the truth that destroys every lie they ever told. The truth that exposes who they really are. The truth that frees you. And now, when I think back to that day in the hospital, to the moment he demanded $55,000 while my mom was fighting for her life, I no longer feel broken. I no longer feel angry. Feel grateful. Because that moment revealed his true face, and it allowed me to choose a different path. Path where my mom is safe. Path where our home is peaceful. Path where lies don't control us. And that is the lesson we both needed.